Greetings, neighbors. This is Reflections, the show sponsored by the Paducah Cooperative Ministry, where we, all of us together, do God's work with human hands. My name's Gregory Waldrop, and I'm the pastor at Fountain Avenue United Methodist Church, and I'm one of your co-hosts. Our other co-host is Karen Winkel. It's from the United Church of Paducah. Welcome, Karen.
Good to see you, Gregory.
Glad you're here.
Me too, and I'm glad for our guest today. We have a program today that we'll be talking about spirituality and healing and the connection. Jesus was a healer, and maybe we think about that, but we don't know necessarily that that is something that's available for us on a daily basis. So we have two new friends to join us. Rosonna Taylor from Mayfield. You have Heaven on Earth there, and Yolanda Heath from Paducah, who has Heath Health Foods, and they have not only an interest in this, but experience with this. And so we've asked them to join us today. Rosonna, I would just invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll ask Yolanda the same.
I'm a healing touch practitioner. I also a Reiki master, Usui Reiki master, and Karuna Reiki master, and have taken several classes in craniosacral therapy. So I'm also a licensed massage therapist. So I have a wide range of tools in my toolbox, basically. But it's all about whatever the individual needs, and I'm the channel to be that help. So the vessel.
We'll talk more about that in a minute. Yeah.
Well, I'm Yolanda Heath. I have been studying alternative healing and energy for about 10 years. I am a licensed practical nurse and recently just completed my certificate as a Healing Touch Spiritual Ministries practitioner. We opened a health food store here in Lone Oak about a year ago, and that's doing very well. So we just try to use the gifts that God's given us to help other people, whatever avenue it may be, dietary, supplements, or using the hands-on healing energy.
That's fascinating work and important work. And tell us from whence comes your inspiration on this? How does this connect us with your work and the Christian faith and the resources of that? Tell us about it.
Well, my story goes back about 10 years, and I always have to share this. My dad was 49 years old, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he died 6 weeks later. And at the time, I was 25 years old, and I decided that I had to understand to some degree why my dad had died and what was the purpose. So I went on a long, spiritual quest to find out what I could do to help other people that maybe were going to experience the same thing. And during this time as well, my father-in-law was diagnosed with leukemia. And so the personal quest came in with, I had two young daughters, they were 3 and 2, and they just lost one grandfather, and we were going to do whatever we could to not lose another one real quick. And so we started looking at alternative modalities, such as the herbs and the supplements, and in that stumbled across a lot of self-discovery and reading in our Bible and really thinking to Jesus, as Karen said, Jesus was the master healer. I mean, if we study Jesus, we know that he healed people by touch, by his words, by his actions. And I think the story that linked all of this energy and abundance for me was the story of Jesus walking through the crowd of people, and when the lady touches the hem of his garment, I mean, he knows that energy leaves his body. And so that kind of started me studying, per se, energy and what energy was about and how we could use it to help other people. So that's kind of my beginning on this quest.
Isn't the Greek word for salvation really a word which means, in the broadest sense, healing?
Exactly.
And wholeness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was where I started.
Great.
It's really hard to put a timeline. I'm a nurse also, I forgot to say that, a licensed practical nurse, and I've been in management and actually worked at Lourdes for a while, and we had the Center for Healthy Living there, and that's where I've always really gone towards the natural healing, we didn't go to doctors, when I was growing up, and my grandmother would take care of us, and that kind of background. So I've always been more for the natural and not the traditional. It's not that traditional definitely has its purpose and its place, but I think as a nurse we probably see a lot of things going on that just simple things that people can do. So I really started exploring. That's when I explored the Healing Touch, which started in '97. So it's been quite some time with that. But I had already been with the supplements and working, with those and learning about all the natural supplements. So it's just very. I think as nurses, it's the compassion, it's the touch, it's knowing that this person just needs that touch, because our society has really gone away from that. I think that we're almost like in our own little box, but that's what really starts some of the issues and the problems that we use. But it's just knowing that. God's love, and having the love to be able to be compassionate, and it's called Compassionate Touch. It's called Healing Touch. It's many names,
Right.
But it's all about being centered on God and being able to show that unconditional love.
Yeah. I've never decided yet whether it was the fixed salve or my mother or father's rubbing it into my chest
Absolutely.
that really made me healthier.
That's right.
After I woke
That's
up
right. That's an
next
excellent
morning.
example.
And
Excellent.
I think it's probably a mistake to try to figure out which is which, isn't it? Which one
right.
did it?
That's right. Right. And there's a lot of lines that are trying to teach children the compassionate touch. That if they, fall down and they have a boo-boo, to go over and, just hold that like their mother or their father, would do. And that's energy. That's the exchange of energy and the unconditional love.
Yeah. I remember the story about a mother who told the story about her daughter who came home late from school and said, where have you been? And she said, I've been helping my friend fix her doll. Says, you can't. The mother said, you don't know anything about fixing dolls. How you? So I didn't fix anything. I just sat there and cried with her on the step. Because her doll had been, she'd pulled her arm out of the socket, and
That's right.
she knew.
That's
She knew
right.
about the compassionate
That's right.
touch and healing, really, isn't
That's
it?
right. Absolutely.
And I think what we have forgotten is we've forgotten that, thousands of years ago, Jesus touched. He touched people. We have become such a society that is afraid to touch. We build barriers and walls, and we won't touch. And Rosonna shared about the Healing Touch program, and though we are both doing Healing Touch, mine came from a different avenue. Actually, it was birthed out of the Healing Touch program. The lady that created the program Healing Touch Spiritual Ministries was the program director for the Healing Touch for over 15 years. And what she found was so many people did not understand. They wanted the Christian perspective. They wanted the Judeo-Christianity aspect of it. So she created, and actually I brought a book. It's called Called Into Healing, and it's Reclaiming Our Judeo-Christianity Legacy of Healing Touch. And it's a wonderful book. It talks all about how Jesus healed and how he touched people. And every story in the Bible talks about Jesus putting his hands on people. And we're in a society that everything is new age, and when you talk of energy, they talk about new age. But I love, I'm going to read this because I think it's so great. Linda says in her book, it says, even though they're drawn to energy healing, people look upon this work as new age, and yet there's nothing new about this work. It involves prayer, it involves touching and moving one's hand in a space around another person's body. In Healing Touch Spiritual Ministry, we recognize all healing comes from God. We are just conduits or instruments of God's healing energy. But most all healing comes from an open heart and is an expression of love and compassion for another. And I think that just says it so beautifully. When we can actively touch someone and, they feel that energy exchange, because that's what we're doing when we hug. That's when it feels good. Right. Just that human touch. And we're so people that don't want to be touched, and that's what we need so bad, is people to touch us.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard physiologically some of the changes that happen with touch. I think if you touch, I think they've discovered if you touch, you can just rest your hand on somebody else's hands for 3 minutes or longer, the blood pressure begins to go down quite naturally. And you have all these different, if you realize the touch is a caring touch and not a defensive one, all kinds of things change physiologically in your body.
Our endorphins.
Endorphins, adrenaline, this sort of low-grade anxiety that we live with, that sort of pumps the adrenaline glands up a little bit, makes sugar sort of hard to, pushes a little extra sugar in there and constricts the blood vessels, and it's just, and all of that contributes to the most the diseases we in this culture fight with the most, in terms of diabetes, in terms of cardiovascular disease, in terms of stroke and all that sort of thing. And this touch is a caring, compassionate touch is a real remedy, a real.
And sometimes it doesn't even have to be touch. I'm sure Rosanna's experienced this. One of the things I've studied is the intent. It is going before God and saying, Lord, use me as an instrument to help this person. Some people do not want to be touched, but if Rosanna's shoulder was hurting, I could just stand here and put my hand like this, and the way that I do this, we were talking, about how would a session go, what would you do? I just stand there and I pray, Lord, use me, use my energy. Maybe my energy at this moment is stronger than this person's, and if you actually will put your hand over that, we're so surprised we ignore energy exchanges, but you don't actually. It's wonderful if the person's comfortable being touched, but I don't have to touch her to send her healing energy. I could just place my hand in that area that's hurt.
Yeah, I have a little sense of that every time I pronounce the benediction at the end of the services, where I literally, it's a gesture that is intended to radiate something. This
It's
blessing.
back to intent.
Yeah.
It's intent.
And there's lots of research on, like with Alzheimer's, that's a lot of the touch, just the touch will bring the elderly, back, to center almost. It will bring them back, and like failure to thrive children. That's why they fail to thrive, and that's where all the premise of Healing Touch was, built on. And there's just lots and lots of research, so it's a very scientifically done, as well as those of us who just accept this is just we're the vessel, and we just ask God to allow us to be that vessel for whatever that individual needs at the time.
I know I read a study where babies in an orphanage were halved, and one side was given, they were both given exactly the same amount of food and attention with regard to diapers and all that sort of thing, but one side was touched excessively and carefully and lovingly caressed, and the others were not.
Right.
And this amazingly high proportion of the untouched were more susceptible to disease and all kinds of discomfort and unhealth, really.
Right.
Well, and I think something else, I was sitting here kind of reflecting on some of the classes that I've taken, and it's like we live in a society that is so, as Rosanna said, we're medically driven, and it has its place. Do not get me wrong. If it was not for medical technology, we would not have diagnoses, we would not have some of the treatments that we have, and some people would not, quote, be healed or be in recovery from certain diseases or the surgeries and things like that. So it definitely has its place, but it's in conjunction. It's like, where did all this separate? Because before we had all this technology, people went to the church for healing. They went and they asked to be touched. People people are anointed with oils. One of the things I also do is use essential oils, and I'm sure Rosonna does as well, to help with things. But it was like basically, what happened in our history is, they went before the church and said, okay, the psychologist said we're going to take care of the mind, the physician said we're going to take care of the body, and church, you just take care of the soul. And we kind of divided it into three instead of bringing it into the unity of the whole, realizing that, God created us. God can help us to do all those aspects. And I think that's where we kind of drifted off. And I think, now we see that coming back. People are coming back to see that we can go before our Heavenly Father and say, Lord, help me to help this person. Because there are some people who will not seek that medical attention. But if you can touch them, they have benefits. So I think that's really important to remember that it's the whole. God created us as a whole individual, a whole being. He didn't say, I'm just going to take care of your soul. He created us, as we are, one whole entire being.
Right.
Well, I'm thinking about the folks who are with us right now who are interested, but who have no point of reference except those gestures that are just instinctive and compassionate between family members or friends. But for someone who wanted to receive a healing touch session, what might they expect? What would be involved? I mean, I know it depends a little bit on the person and their need.
Right. Basically, a session with. Usually it can be 5 minutes, but typically maybe about an hour. And I think the first thing people want to know, they don't have to take their clothes off.
Exactly.
Okay. And we can work on them sitting or laying down. Of course, laying down on the treatment table is the most optimal. Yeah, it's a massage table, and they lay on their back, and we do like an assessment, with the field, just where their energy is. And then it may just be that we work in one spot if they're having shoulder problems or back problems or whatever. So it will vary, but I think that's the main thing. And what I stress to my clients is, give yourself permission.
Yes.
And allow yourself to relax and go into the most relaxed, because that's the key. Our body, God made our body to be, it's a miracle machine.
It is.
And it will heal it, will know what it needs if you can put it in balance. So the whole premise, and I'm getting confirmation just by saying that, but the whole premise is just to put the body in balance and then allow the individual is doing the work, with their self. We're just the instrument, but they are the.
And I totally agree with Rosonna, and I mean, I'm the same way. I know just sitting here talking about this, it gets hot.
Yeah.
My energy exchange gets warm, because I know, I think we all know when you're speaking something of truth, it resonates with your soul. And just like Rosonna said, the biggest fear is nobody wants to come and lay on a table and take their clothes off. It's totally invasive. As I said earlier, you don't actually have to put your hands on the person. You can put your hands above that person. I have found if the person will allow the touch, the energy flow is so much stronger, because it's that actual connectivity of the one part of the body to another part, and just allowing yourself, for me, to freely say, Lord, I'm standing here, I'm a willing vessel today for Karen. Please, use me for Karen's best good. And it has nothing to do with me. It's all about being that channel. But it's allowing yourself, as Rosonna said, if you're the client receiving the treatment, it's giving yourself permission to take that time to relax, to go into that space. What will a client experience is the biggest question. I have a client that I work with. He's a gentleman. He's in his early 50s. He has lung cancer. Usually when he comes to me, usually about once a week, he is having severe shortness of breath because the cancer's in his lungs. After a session, he usually breathes better for several days, and he can see the difference in that. And he actively says, this is amazing stuff. And through this, his faith has strengthened. He has started studying things on his own. about this and the energy exchange and why it's working. And it's not me. I'm not doing anything. I just said, the saying, Lord says, who will go? Who will I send? I just said, Lord, you can send me. I will do this. Rosanna's done the same thing. And there's so many other people in our community who are willing vessels who are doing this. And so it's just something new that's coming around.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about that relaxation business. There's in some ways the most anxious and tense I get is when somebody says, "All right, just relax." I start to say, "Okay, how, where?" So tell us a little bit about it.
It really kind of works with the autonomic nervous system anyway. So as you're touching and going through, your body will just naturally relax. We may coach to say, take a deep breath or, a little bit like that, but your body will naturally relax because of the autonomic,
Response, yeah.
response. But your body will actually
And I'm
knows
sure
how to do that.
It's your mind that's hard
Right,
to
turn
that
off.
is
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, and I
right,
think Rosanna
absolutely.
probably does this too. I mean, if you create what I've been taught in my classes is a healing space. When someone comes to me for a session, number one, before they come, I have gone into that room and I have prayed over that room and said, Lord, make this room peaceful and serene. And most people that come up and they say, boy, this room is so peaceful. I also play a CD of very soothing music. The environment is warm and welcoming. I have blankets on my massage table because when you are doing an energy exchange, the person usually gets very cool. Their body temperature seems to drop a little bit and they get cold. And but to create the environment where they can lay there and relax. And I think we do that. If we will lay down and get quiet and the nice vibrational energy of the music, it will make you relax. And the more relaxed you can get, the better the session is for the client and for the practitioner.
And I've had clients say, all I have to do is just lay on your table and I start
I do too.
relaxing. So the body knows, and especially after you've had one treatment or two treatments, it will just go into that balance and allow the energy to flow and to work and to do what it needs to do.
And I think, what Rosanna and I are sharing is a one-on-one client practitioner relationship. However, the one thing I love about the Healing Touch Spiritual Ministries program is they're actually presenting this to churches. They are presenting it so that churches can use this, going back to the laying of hands on people that in a lot of ways our churches have gotten away from. The program, Healing Touch Spiritual Ministries, I was so blessed, and I have to thank Karen publicly that United Church of Paducah allowed us to use her space last year for us to bring the Healing Touch Spiritual Ministry program here to Paducah. We had 7 ladies participate in class 1 and 2, which is the hands-on healing, and we're going to bring it back again this year in June of this year on the 29th and 30th. Bring the first 2 sessions, which are really the first 2 classes, are how to bring this into your church, how to use it in your churches, and how we can and it's not a whole body touch, it's just an upper body touching system, and also using some of the basic oils that we hear about in the Bible, the myrrh, the frankincense, and things like that. So we're blessed to get to do that again this year, and I'm really excited and hope that people will be receptive in learning that.
Right. And the aroma has something to do with all that as well, right?
It does.
Part of it. The oil, it's not just the oil, but the aroma, the oil. And
Because your smell is the first sense that really will start that relaxation process. So.
Well, I'm one of the things that has intrigued me in sort of particularly some of the thoughts about healing has been the whole notion about your body's natural opiates. You mentioned that a little earlier. The name of it's for
endorphins?
Endorphins, the endorphins, and those, all the ways that those are that they are manufactured by our bodies. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that part of this, or is that
It is. That gets a little more on the technical side, and I tend to kind of just let that on the back burner because it's strictly just allowing God to do what needs. But it's kind of like if when you put your body in the relaxation, it allows the melatonin, it allows all the serotonin, everything to then start balancing and to be able to start producing. Because when when the body is stressed out, it clamps down, and that's kind of a rudimentary way to explain it, but it just kind of clamps down, and it does not allow that natural flow of the melatonin and the serotonin.
And our bodies, if we measure things on frequency, our bodies have a normal natural frequency between 62 and 68 megahertz. When your body's frequency gets below that, that's when we start getting ill, that's when we start getting disease processes. And so that's the thing, it's all about being in balance. I mean, we hear that all the time. If you're in balance, then that will happen. So just as Rosonna was saying, if you can bring it in balance, you can get your body back into balance, that's what happens. And so that's how a lot of things will happen. We hear all the time, stress causes disease, different things cause disease. So it's getting into balance, our mind, body, soul, spirit, all into balance is what will help us to that relaxed state and allow God to do what He wants to do. So.
I'm aware that many of us think of our bodies kind of in a way, the same way as we do our vehicles. That that there's just it's a
mechanical
bunch of stuff that works
Fit
or it
together.
doesn't. And what I'm really thinking as we're speaking is, how aware and willing the body is, and that we do make choices that might not be the body's choice, but if we will respect that and give it what it needs, the body knows what to do with that. And
and our body, I think it's every 4 months, our whole blood system has been regenerated. I think every 7 years, your whole skin system has been rejuvenated. So, if you think of it that way and you get into the more medical aspect and you read about it, it's amazing what our bodies can do.
Right.
without our minds telling it.
Exactly.
Without having to
Yeah.
control it. Huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Make sure we know where you all are. We're just about at the end of our time. Tell us how to get in touch with you and maybe something that's coming up. We don't have much time, so.
Okay. I'm located at 210 North 8th Street in Mayfield, and the phone number is 247-9615.
Marvelous.
And I'm located right over on Lone Oak Road. It's 2006 Lone Oak Road, and our phone number is 270-534-4977. And again, I'm Yolanda, and like I said, we have a Healing Touch Spiritual Ministries class coming up June the 29th and 30th. It's going to be here in Paducah, so if anyone wants any more information, they can call the phone number, and we'll be happy to help them.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having us.
For your good work. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Gregory.
Good time.
Yeah. And thank you, friends and neighbors, for joining us. Reflections, this program sponsored by Paducah Cooperative Ministry. Wherever you are, however you can, please join us in doing God's work with human hands. Shalom.
Shalom.